What DAW, or Digital Audio Workstation, for those of you who don't know what DAW is, would you choose if you had to switch DAWs? If you had to switch from something like I am. In last week's podcast, I ranted, as I am wont to do, about Logic Pro Logic Pro 11, and my frustration that Logic seemed to be changing into a completely different animal. And I'm still not sure who it's trying to reach or serve with its weird AI things and its easy bass and its easy keys and its easy mastering. And, I know that composers that are serious use it to compose. I do. I have for 25 years. And I can't imagine that they are crazy about the AI additions. I've already heard people telling me I'm not crazy about all this 10-year-old, 15-year-old beat making stuff that Logic is adding. And so I'm not quite sure who they are after as a market. And but like me, those composers are probably using their templates, and we're still using Logic like we always have. But let me ask you a question. What if I decided to switch DAWs? What if I decided to just move to something else? What would I choose? And maybe you can help me. I'm sure in the comments, there's already comments about what DAW that you use. But you can list that. Maybe I already know, by the way, what my backup DAW is going to be. I'm not going to reveal that till later in the video. But let me know the DAW that you use, and also let me know in the comments what DAW you would switch to. Now you can't just say, well, I'm using this and I'll never use anything else. That's not the point of this whole thing. You have to switch from one to the other. You have to switch from where you are. If you had to switch, you can list where you are. You don't even have to tell me the whole, I'm not going to switch because I love FL. I'm not asking. What I'm asking is, if you had to switch, if FL or whatever your DAW is became something that you weren't crazy about, what would you switch to? That's the question. So there's already a poll on the YouTube site. If you want to go over to the YouTube community page, there is a poll there. We're going to go over that today and look at that. And maybe you can help me with this. Put it in the comments what you work with now and what you might go to after that. And would you switch to Logic from where you are? Would you switch to Cubase, like our friend Stevie B is switching to? Would you switch to Studio One, which seems very in fashion these days? Maybe you'd totally switch sides and go to Ableton. And see what I did there? Switch sides, because Ableton is on the other side. You're probably already in FL, and why would anyone switch to there on purpose? But sorry, I'm not going to hate on FL today. But let me know what you use, what you'd like to use if you had to switch from what your DAW is going to be. So that's where we are today. Well, welcome to the Make Music Income podcast. My name is Eric Copeland, and I am your host here on Make Music Income. And one of the important things about making music income is you got to have a way to make music. And for 26 years, Logic has been my DAW of choice since my engineer that I was working with at that time demanded I use it. And so I started doing my MIDI in there, and I just got used to it, and it just became my DAW. And then Logic became an Apple product, and it got prettier and more fun. And so that's what I've been using for 30 years as a music composer, arranger, and producer. Today's show is sponsored by the Getting in Sync course. If you have not seen this yet, it is about to go up in its price, and it's out. And we also have a class, and that class is going to take place today after this podcast. If you're interested in this course, go grab it for the lowest price it's at and join us in the class. We're going to do that today, probably somewhere around 1:15 to 1:30, and I'll be going over another big part of the course about how I got into sync and the kind of music that I decided to do and why. The why, the how, all that kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. I'll show you the course in today's module. We'll also talk about the course in today's module. So you'll want to come to class today. If you're interested, go run over and just go right here. Just go to makemusicincome.com/learn. You can go and just go find the course, go grab it. It's at its cheapest price it's ever going to be. It's getting ready to go up in the next week. And so you want to get it now, and you get the class for free. The class is every Friday. We're just going straight through the whole course, and you get not only to see it and hear, but you get to talk to me live in Zoom. And so if you're interested in that today, either put it in the comments here today or let me know, and you can be part of the Getting in Sync course. So yeah, just go to makemusicincome.com/learn. You can find all our free stuff. We've got lots of free stuff there for you too, folks. If you're not interested in a course right now, but you need some free information, there's tons of free ebooks and stuff there, and you can find it at makemusicincome.com/learn. And as always, I hope this podcast and these channels are helpful to you to learn how to make the music you love and make music income. But now, before we get into any more frivolity here on the show, we have a special guest. And our special guest, here on the show, we don't only like just get a guy from the U.S. or Canada, because we have Canadian guests, Mr. Stevie B. But no, we go worldwide with our guests. And joining me today is someone you know and love. Ladies and gentlemen, our friend Marco Valerio Romano. Hello, Marco.
Hi, everyone. How are you, Eric? It's good to be back.
I'm good. It's good to see you, man. How you been doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. You been busy?
Yes. This week has been very busy, actually.
What are you up to?
I've been working on 3 short movies at the same time, and different stages on them. One is
scoring these movies.
Right. One is just in the concept stage, and the other 2 we are finalizing. The score one is in the mixing stage. So wow. Yeah, it's been quite a busy week. Yeah.
Well, that is excellent, man. I am so glad that you're busy. It's always good to see busy. And one of the things that interests me about Marco from the very beginning is that he was, making his full income and from music. And I don't meet many people that do that. I don't meet many young people who do that. Many younger people who say, I'm just going to let it all hang out and do only music full time. And I think that's very cool, and I'm glad you're here. Well, I need Marco here as my co-host and producer today to help me. We're going to keep a count today. We're going to be watching the chat, and I'm going to have Marco kind of write down what he sees there. And our goal here today, it's a strange goal, but it's one that I think we're going to all run into at some point. And that is, we've got to figure out if we switch DAWs, if we move from the music making program we're in, what do we go to? Just for fun, Marco, well, you have so many Arios and Manos, but Marco,
I know.
and I know a Mario too, so I get that name confused sometimes. But Marco, what DAW do you use?
I'm Team Logic.
Team Logic, okay, all right.
Yes.
Eve, how are you liking?
I've been using Pro Tools like for 5 years at the beginning, and now I've been using Logic for I don't know how many years, but I've been quite happy with it actually.
How do you like Pro 11? Are you in the new one yet? Have you upgraded?
Yes, I am. I just explored the new functions. I haven't used them in a project already. Yes, I don't see myself using them soon. I will try to experiment maybe in the free time.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I will be using the new bass AI player on a official project. We'll see.
I'm torn on the bass player. The bass player of all things I'm torn on, just because of the articulations that they included. It's pretty impressive. But I went over that last week. We're not going to talk about Pro Tools AI this week, but we are going to talk about what would I go to. So before we even get much more started here, let's go over and talk and see who is in the comments today. And Wolfgang is in the comments. Lovely fishing rod. Which streaming platform do you get the most streams from? That's another topic. DAWs that use AI is what most people will prefer these days. Maybe. I think that most people will prefer DAWs that have AI who are looking for DAWs that make music for them, rather than serious composers who are really wanting to just get in and don't. Just like Marco said, he doesn't have time to go play with the stuff because he's got to score movies. He's got movies to work on and literally has to finish that. Travis Rothwell is in the house, and he's been having some odd issues with Logic 10. Not excited about Logic 11. Been looking at Luna this week. Still a newer project, not as full featured, but I'm liking it. I hear a lot of people talking about Luna. A lot of people talking about the ability to take advantage of the UA hardware and all that kind of stuff through Luna. So that's a vote for Luna. What I'm trying to come up with, Marco, is a list of and count of what would be the winner of the switching. Like, for instance, in Travis' comment, the winner would be Luna, not Logic. You know what it would be? He would be, because my goal is to find out what people would switch to. And at the end, I'll reveal.
Yes, that's fine. I'm keeping the count.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Bradford Knights. Hello, Bradford. I hope you're doing well. Bradford uses Pro Tools and says he would switch to Reaper, which is very, this is pretty normal. I'm hear a lot of people say if I had to switch from Pro Tools, specifically Pro Tools, that they would switch to Reaper, mainly because Reaper, it seems to be the closest cousin to Pro Tools with its feature set and what it's focused on as far as really mixing, and some people say mastering as well. So thank you for that, Bradford. Wolfgang says, I use Cubase. Maybe I would go to Studio One. Okay. All right. We're going to talk about all those today because I've been looking at Cubase and Studio One this week. Marco says, hi, Eric. Hey, Marco. Oh, that's Marco. Never mind. Why does it say Pollux? What's Pollux?
Oh, that's not me.
Oh, well.
That's another Marco.
Oh, he's saying, hey, Eric and Marco. I thought you were saying, hey, Eric from Marco. Well, Marco Pollux says, I tried all. By far the best is Cubase. Shortcuts, and all the other stuff he says here. Marco, I'd love to know what you would, if you weren't able to use Cubase. It became unwieldy for some reason. What would you switch to? That's what I want to know in our polls here today. Hey, give us a thumbs up, everybody. If you're here, that'll help more people come in and tell us what they're going to use. For now, though, I want to go back and just kind of go through some polls that I've put out there, and one of them is on YouTube, and let's see if I can access that easily. Let me go to YouTube, and let's go to my community, and I'm just going to have to go to Make Music Income, and if we go there and look at the community, I should have the poll right here, and here it is. Okay, so I'm going to go to the poll now, and technology, ta-da. Okay, so we're going to look at the poll. And as you can see here in the poll, I made this yesterday. If you decided to switch DAWs, which one would you switch to? I've determined my backup DAW, and we'll announce it tomorrow or today. But the winner so far right now, and I think this is going to be the winner. This is my prediction for what the winner is going to be, by the way. I think the winner is, hold on, let me turn off that comment there just so we can see this a little better. I think the winner is going to be Cubase, because it's 34% say they would switch to Cubase. The second winner is they would switch to Logic Pro 11, Would you know? The third one they said they would switch to is Studio One, which is not surprising to me. I think Studio One's going to do very well in today's race to see who would be the DAW you would switch to. 14% said other, and in other we have I'm not going to count if you won't switch. So if you're FL and say I'm FL, I'm not switching. Well, then I'm not counting you. I switched from Cubase to Studio One. So far, I'm loving it. So I'll give that a Studio One vote. And it's a cross between Ableton and Logic. So half a point to each, to Ableton and Logic. I would switch to Cubase or Studio One. So Cubase and Studio One we'll just give them votes. I've been looking at both Cubase and Studio One this week a lot. Haven't been looking at Ableton. I probably should, even though I need to know some things about Ableton before I use it, but it just seems like it's very far out there as far as an interface change for what I've been used to. So anyway, this is where our poll is looking. If you want to go vote in this poll, you can. We'll check it again later. It's on the community page on the Make Music Income YouTube page. So right now, since yesterday, with 86 votes, which is not a little votes. It's a good amount of votes. So I'm happy to see that. So thank you if you voted in that. Let's see who else is in the house here. Mr. Remix says, I use Ableton. Okay, Mr. Remix, but what would you use if you had to switch from Ableton? That's the question. Beautiful Knowledge says Logic Pro. I assume that's what you would switch to. So there's another vote for Logic Pro. Sally O says, hey, Sally, I went from Studio One to Logic, but only for the fact that Logic is paid outright with no subscription. Well, that counts. So there's a vote for going to Logic. Marco says, I did switch from Cubase to Logic Pro X. Okay, well, there's another vote for Logic. So I think that's fair. I think, that is what we're trying to determine here is what DAW would you switch to? I love to hear your stories about DAWs and what you like, but what Sally O says is a very valid point. If you're talking about, and I think we can come back here. If you're talking about how much DAWs cost, you get basically Logic for $199 forever, at least right now. Know this, though, they have changed their pricing on the iPad. You can get Logic Pro for the iPad, although it kind of looks like GarageBand to me for the most part. But you can get Logic Pro for the iPad, but you got to pay $4.99 a month for it, or $49 a year. So it's a paid app now on iOS, which makes me scared that they're going to turn it into a paid app on the computers too. I don't know. What do you think, Marco? You think they would ever go through that?
I don't know. I don't think so. Actually, as I know, I think Logic for iPad was introduced as a subscription since the beginning. Previously, there was GarageBand only. And since they introduced Logic as well, it was introduced as a subscription. I don't think they will change the Mac system as well, because Apple is in the business of selling computers, and they're not just in the business of selling software. So I think for them, selling software is very important, but that's like a way to sell more computers as well. So.
That is a really good point. And, I tell all my students who don't have a DAW for making music, because a lot of times one of the things I teach at the school I teach at is Pro Tools, and we don't, on campus we teach Logic as well, but online we only teach Pro Tools. And I tell them GarageBand is free, and you can just go and play with GarageBand and do some MIDI if you're not digging MIDI in Pro Tools. However, I have to say that I have come around a little bit to Pro Tools MIDI, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, I agree, Sally. I also like Studio One for its ease of use, and I considered using Studio One myself. And still, it's on the list of possibilities. All right, so let's see what else I got on the old script today. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do first, is I wanted to look at the YouTube poll. I also did one on LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if it's if it got many votes. Let's take a look. If I look at what I've done there, where would I find that? If you guys don't know, I'm on LinkedIn. If you're ever on LinkedIn and you wanna find us, you can do that. I'm not even sure how to find that poll that I put on LinkedIn. If I go to my John Eric Copeland profile, it's hard for me to find. I'm under John Eric Copeland, by the way, on LinkedIn. Oh, here we go. If you were going to switch DAWs, I had 7. Okay, we've got votes. So 33, it's tied right now between Logic Pro and Pro Tools on with 6 votes. So it looks like I'm going to say that 2 votes for Logic, 2 votes for Pro Tools, and a vote for Cubase, and a vote for Logic. So it's not a vote for Logic. So basically just 2 votes for Logic, 2 votes for Pro Tools, and 1 vote for Cubase on LinkedIn. Okay, so by the way, folks, if you don't know, we do have a LinkedIn group called Make Music Income, and we also have a Facebook page called and a Facebook group called Make Music Income. So if you are on either of those platforms and you want to hook up, come see us or just search for us and find us. All right, let's move on here. I want to talk about DAW possibilities. Like if I was going to switch, what DAW would I switch to? Which DAW? And I did some looking through all of the DAWs this week. I mean, when you're trying to figure out if you're going to replace the DAW, this is very important, right? I mean, we work in it every day. It's like your workplace. It's like your desk. You got to have your DAW. You got to have your computer program. There are some people who are they work in sheet music, they work in scores, and so they're working in engraving programs and scoring programs like Sibelius or Finale or Dorico or something like that, and that's their domain. When they call up to something to make music, they're going to make music there. But for the rest of us, for us producers, beat makers, songwriters, composers, we're going to likely call up a DAW of some kind. And so I just want to go through some of these possibilities and show people what the possibilities are. First, though, I want to go through and talk about what I would need in a DAW and what I most value in a DAW. And then I'll get your thoughts too on this, Marco. But what I would first be looking for mainly is MIDI programming. I need to be able to do MIDI. That's mainly what I do. Is I probably do 80% MIDI and 20% audio as far as here when I'm creating things for licensing or when I'm writing songs or whatever. I am definitely using MIDI, and so I need good MIDI editing. I need to be able to edit really well. I need a decent but not crazy interface. Some of the interfaces have all these colors, or they're just not pretty. Or Luna is interesting, but it's a little. It seems a little. I don't know. It's just starting its interface look. Pro Tools, not great interface all the time. Very tiny stuff. As I tell people, Pro Tools has an interface that only engineers would love, but focus on. I need it to really focus on serious music. I just don't really want to be part of a program that focuses on making AI music or music for dummies or music for beat makers, or here's a program that will do it all for you, and that is starting to bother me, because I think of myself as a serious composer, and I work hard to compose and to really work and have things come out of my fingers rather than have stuff come out of just by pushing a button. You can literally, I counted the seconds. We did it in class the other day. but I did it in 15 seconds. I was able to start a whole beat with drums, the drummer track, the bass track, and the piano track in 15 seconds. And in 15 seconds, I had something passable for an A section. And it's just called up something, and it goes against my goals of being a music composer, of being someone who is going to make something myself. It just makes me feel just like any 10-year-old could have just done that. And to me, if that's the case, and you know what, and I've already done the whole video about how, about that, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But I just don't want that. It's got to have strong mixing capabilities. That's a big deal. And it's probably got to be very, very usable by others. In other words, it needs to be, other people need to be using this DAW. And so if I'm passing files around, other people can use it. It needs to be one of the top DAWs. And then it needs to be growing. I need to see growth, that the people who make the DAW are trying to grow. And I think really all of them are. Cubase, Studio One, Ableton, FL, Logic, Pro Tools, all of them I think are doing that. So I think they're all doing that. But I want them to grow in the right direction. Can you imagine if Pro Tools, they already came out with this sketch thing, that's like a Ableton type of thing. Can you imagine if they came out with like AI tools for how to mix, and just put on the AI mixer in Pro Tools? I think there would be a revolution of engineers that would just they would just explode. They would all Nashville would just blow up on the map, and they'll say, "What happened? Was it a nuclear blast?" No, it was all the engineers that just blew up because they changed Pro Tools so drastically. Now let me talk about the things that are probably not as important to me in a DAW, and you can agree or not agree with this in the comments, but I'm not sure. I used to love Logic because of its sound library. And if I'm on a desert island, to be honest, I have to have Logic because it's got a sound, it's so deep in its sound library. But I'm not on a desert island. I do live in Florida, which is kind of like being on a big island, but I have tons of sounds. And as a matter of fact, when I make a piece of music, I'm using Keyscape for pianos. I'm using Easy Drummer for drums or some other program. I'm using, or something in Native Instruments. I'm using Trillion for bass or something in Native Instruments. I'm using Native Instruments guitars. I'm using Spitfire and orchestral tools and all the complete stuff I have through Native Instruments and Musio. I am not really diving that far down into the Logic library. Now, I do have to say the Logic harp, the orchestral harp, and the cymbal roll. Everybody knows I love the cymbal roll on B flat 4 or A sharp 4 or no, A sharp 2. I can't remember where it is on the MIDI scale, but there's an orchestral kit and there's a great cymbal roll that I use all the time. But otherwise, I'm using all my plugins, and so it's not as important that the DAW have great plugins as long as it's able to bring in my plugins. I'm really not that crazy about. I understand that there are some AI things that might be helpful, some tools. I'm not against AI tools. I use ChatGPT all the time. I use video and especially photo and graphic AI programs all the time. I use Leonardo.ai very often, especially when I'm creating videos for clients. It's very helpful when you can't find a stock image or stock video that you want. You can usually find something that you need in that. So I'm not against AI at all, even in music, but I don't need it. And so the more they try to push it on me and make it a thing, the less that I'm going to like that DAW. I don't need loops. I just don't need loops. Now, a lot of people will need loops, and so it's going to be very important for them to have a way to make loops, but I don't really work in a loop-based environment. I don't make a 4-bar thing and then just stretch it out for the entire song. I play from the beginning to the end on all parts. But again, that's me. I'm a I'm kind of old school, but I'm also composing, and I want the part to sound real and not just repeated. You know, this isn't the Bee Gees. By the way, did you know that the Bee Gees were the first ones to use loops? And they used it on Staying Alive, and they got a 2-bar drum loop on a piece of tape, and they just used that for the entire thing. That was from then on, everybody knew that they could just make a loop. So thanks to I can't remember the engineer who did that, but that was the first time a loop was really just used, especially for a big hit. And then after that, it's been all loops all day. But I don't need loops in my DAW, and I don't need MIDI effects. I don't need all the fancy arpeggiators and stuff. I need programs that do arpeggiating, and that's done in like Omnisphere or whatever, but I don't need that to happen in my DAWs. Any of these things ring true or not true for you, Marco? Do you need any things you need? What do you need in a DAW?
Yes, well, first I was thinking that I think that the first ones to use loops were like musicians in other genres, like Edgard Varese and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in the 40s even. But then, yeah, I'm sure that the Bee Gees were the first ones to use them in let's say popular music. But anyway, well, I agree with actually everything you said, basically. I think that the loops library is not that important. I mean, it's not as important as the MIDI programming abilities and the mixing abilities that the DAW will offer. I think another important aspect, in my opinion, is the native integration with surface controls, maybe controllers. I mean, like how easily you can use controllers to use plugins and maybe even third-party plugins. Like lately, there are some great surfaces for Logic that integrate very well with Logic, and they're very, very useful in my opinion. And well, another important aspect in my opinion is also how you control automations. I think that's also very important and very useful to be able to see and control automations in a cool way, and edit them easily and not just clicking on small points on a big line. And one third and last aspect I want to underline is that, in my opinion, it is very, very important what shortcuts you can use in that DAW. Like sometimes there are some shortcuts that I would love to use in Logic, but I can't because they're not natively programmed in the
like
software.
What?
So I don't remember now.
I mean, can't you just make? I mean, you could go in and
No, I can tell you because I had to program macros, which is very complicated in Logic.
Well, couldn't you just go into the Logic thing and make shortcuts?
No, because there are some controls that you can't actually do that. Like, for example, to change the freeze mode for a track. I used, using big libraries, you sometimes need to freeze mode.
So there's tracks, not you can't find it on the show.
Yes, there is a shortcut to freeze the track, but there are different modes to freeze the track. Like you can freeze it before plugins, or you can freeze it after plugins. But there isn't a shortcut to change the freeze mode. And I don't know. Yeah, that's very interesting, and I don't know what there are many actually that I had to kind of program myself. You can program macros in some cool DAWs like Cubase. I know it's very good for that, and I think that's very, very useful in a DAW to be able to.
Wolfgang said Cubase is great for MIDI. He said, and that's one reason why I probably was looking at Cubase very seriously, because most of the composers I see online, Guy, and now I know that Stevie B is really kind of making the switch over to Cubase, And so I see a lot of serious composers using Cubase, and so I've looked at it. I'm afraid of the learning curve and the especially coming from Logic. But then again, I learned Pro Tools, so if I can learn Pro Tools, I can learn anything. But Ronan says Mixcraft is great, but only a PC version. Very simple workflow. Marco Pollock says, I don't like AI as a source to produce, but I can see non-musicians loving it. I don't need it, at least not right now. Yeah, same. I don't have any problem with non-musicians having fun making music with AI. It's absolutely fine. I am a non-graphic. I can take pictures, but I need stock stuff all the time for video use, for video making. And I'm fine to go to stock sites, but there are sometimes stock sites don't have what I need, and I can go into AI programs and make exactly what I need, and it works great. And so I have no problem with doing things, but I would never go to an AI program and make a piece of art and like frame it and say, look what I made, because I didn't make it. And so that's one of the things that I see. JMO says, Eric, are you rasking on Tuscan Sam too? Isn't it Toucan Sam? I think it's Toucan Sam, right? For Fruit Loops. I'm not. I just want this to be known to all. I am pro dry cereal. I am absolutely pro dry cereal. I love me some Captain Crunch, and I don't eat a lot of cereal, but I love all kinds of cereal. So I am absolutely pro cereal. They have nothing to do with DAWs, but I'm absolutely pro cereal. I'll have to say that right now. All right, let's talk about a few of these DAWs. I've got them up here, and I just want to share them on my browser and just talk about a few of them, and just kind of see where we are with these. And I have them right here. And so the first one is Cubase, and that is the way they have this Cubase set up. It looks pretty sexy. I have to say that right now. I mean, it looks very nice. I like the colors. And I guess maybe if I was able to, I'm sure you can trick it out to look like this. Every time I've seen people use it, it does not look like this. It looks much worse. So I don't know how they made this, but it does look pretty good. Now, maybe I've just seen people using it, and I have seen different things, but I would look into it. It's a little pricey, and I don't even know which one I would need. I don't think I would need any of these things, although I don't know why only the Pro does professional composition. You can't do professional composition in the artist version, because you can't be so obviously you can't be a professional unless you get the Pro version. And $579, it's a little pricey. Do they do like a monthly? But that would be really expensive. So I don't know. I might still look at it, maybe download. I haven't downloaded a version of this yet to see if I would use it. Do you have any thoughts on Cubase? I know we have Cubase people watching, and it's very popular, obviously, in our polls today.
Well, actually, Cubase is the only option I considered switching to myself.
Okay, another vote.
I haven't yet, only for one reason mainly. That is because I only install Audio Units plugin usually, and Cubase only works with VST. So that's a thing to consider if you have to switch. But I would love to switch to Cubase.
Marco Pollock says no monthly. No monthly. I hear a lot of people saying this, like, I don't want any monthly things. Because I need it for Nashville, I pay $9.99 a month for Pro Tools, and I wish I didn't, to be honest with you. But I really I would look at Cubase. I know it's expensive, but that is a possibility for me, is to look at this for sure. So that's Cubase. The next one that I would consider is Studio One. And I think Studio One is, I've always felt from the beginning when Studio One came out that it was a strong possibility for switching over to from Logic, and that it was probably the easiest DAW, and most, like, you want to just get into a DAW real quick, besides GarageBand. I think this might be one of the easiest ones to just call up and start using and try to figure out. It's pretty straightforward. The other great thing about Studio One is the fact that it's got a great mastering suite in it, and it lets you literally master songs that are going together on an album, which I don't know if any other program really has a dedicated mastering section like that in it. But I like Studio One, and I've considered it, and I actually downloaded it last week to look at. And I've downloaded it many times because I've had clients that needed a quick DAW at home, and they used to have a free version. Maybe they still do. And so you got your built-in beat maker. There you go. And the chord track, that looks interesting. Lyrics track. So it's certainly a possibility that I would look at. And by the way, I am not. This is not a sponsored video. I'm just talking about DAWs today. But I would look at Studio One for sure if I was going to, because it's certainly up there. Let me go back and see if anybody is saying anything. Marco says Cubase have no monthly payments, pay only a fraction on big upgrades. Okay. ISO is in the house. I would pick up FL Studio for you because you do a lot of composing and it has excellent piano roll. Would you now? You think so? You think that's going to be my pick, FL Studio? Have you ever watched this channel before? Okay, well we'll continue on from there with that comment. Thank you, ISO. Let's see, what other things do I have in here? I do actually have. Look what I have here to look at. FL Studio, the fastest way from your brain to your speakers. One of my students said about FL. He said the interface, let's see if there's another picture of the interface. He said the interface looks like an airplane cockpit controls. And I am not a fan of the way FL looks. I think it's pretty ugly. I don't like the fonts. I think it's desperately in need of a just like Pro Tools is, desperately in need of a facelift on its interface. Do you have any thoughts about Studio One or FL so far? Marco, you have anything to say about this?
Well, Studio One, I don't know it that well, actually. I'm intrigued, of course. FL Studio, I know it a little better because actually, if I remember well, like the first song I ever produced, like 15 or more years ago on a friend's computer, actually, was on FL Studio. It was fun to use it. It's very user friendly. It's very approachable, for sure. I mean, of course, there's no one size fits all with those. So I don't think that FL Studio works for me that well. But I'm sure, I mean, I know many people like doing hip hop beats and trap beats.
And I would probably say if that's your genre, that's what FL excels at, it seems. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That seems to be what most people are using FL for. So I get it. Not Chillest Grime City says FL Studio always get the new version. I don't know what that means. So I guess that means the new version is, I guess it's because you can upgrade. And also I think FL comes with a lot of software. And so a lot of people, or hardware, so a lot of people who buy a certain hardware, they get FL for free. And it's not that Ableton doesn't as well. Ableton does that very much as well. That you get a version, like a free version for free, and then you can start to up the upgrade path, up all these things. And Cubase has, or they used to have LE. Do they still have LE? They used to have something called Cubase LE. And yeah, there it is right there. And it comes with a lot of things. Also, Ableton. Now, Have you ever used Ableton, Marco?
Yes, yes. Ableton is super cool in my opinion, and I've been using Ableton a lot for electronic music, especially because I've worked with a lot of people who only use Ableton basically in doing electronic music, and I think it's especially useful beside that specific genre for building live shows and live performances.
Yep.
Like, for example, last year I've been asked to help a friend of mine build a live set with mainly loops. He actually was the one making the loops, and he played the loops, and he sort of composed those loops in order to make like it was like 20 or 30 songs, I don't remember, and then he had to like play them live, integrating with live instruments, and it was actually a very cool live set, and the best option to do that in my opinion was Ableton. That's really cool. That's quite a niche though, but it works really well for what it does.
There's a reason it's called live. You know, it's not
Yeah.
just called live for
Right.
no reason. It started out as a program to use on the stage as a way to trigger different parts of your song or different things and be a live DAW basically. Now, I still don't understand. Somebody told me, but I can't remember. Why is let me see. Am I still sharing? Why is everything on the right? Why? Why are all the tracks over here? Is there a reason? Somebody told me one time, and I can't remember why. But there's got to be a reason why everything is on the right, because it's the only DAW that all the tracks are over here rather than over here. And I can't remember what they told me. Do you remember if there's a reason?
I don't know actually. That's interesting. I never asked myself that actually, but now that you make me notice it, yeah,
It's
true.
backwards. Everybody always asks me, why not Ableton? I'm like, it's backwards. How would I get used to, after 30 years or 40 years, if you go back to Cakewalk and what I was using in the early 90s, of using DAWs that everything was on the left. It's like learning to read in Chinese. You got to go backwards. And why would I want, it just seems, I guess you could get used to it, but it just...
But yeah, in my opinion, it actually makes sense. I see it, you know, in the other DAWs, it's like music is generating from the tracks, while in Ableton, it's like feeding the mixer from the tracks. It looks that way to me.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's different, but it works anyway.
Okay, well, whatever you say, Marco. I'll take your word for it. I'm not sure. Tony Thomas says, I love Ableton Session View, very fast for nonlinear compositions. Okay, well, so that is those. Let's see, do I have anything else up here? Oh, yes, I have Pro Tools up here, and we'll talk about Pro Tools in a second. I teach Pro Tools, so I know a little bit more about Pro Tools than I do any of the other DAWs. Like I said, I've used a little bit of Studio One, but mostly Logic and then Pro Tools, because when I moved to Nashville, even before I moved to Nashville, you had to communicate with people in Pro Tools. That's all they used in the studios. And so any engineer who sent you stuff, I had to end up buying a Mac or at least an inbox back in the day, because you could not do anything with players unless you had Pro Tools, and you couldn't run Pro Tools with just any hardware back then. Now you can run it with just any interface, but you had to have an inbox or some kind of thing, and now you can use Pro Tools with any interface. So we'll get back to Pro Tools here in a little bit. So let's come back here. JMO says, anyone use Audacity or Sony Acid? I use something like, I've used Audacity plenty of times when I needed a quick and dirty free app to bring up to edit two mixes, but I've really never used it as a multi-track. I know you can, but I don't know if anyone seriously uses it as a multi-track, and I don't think it does any kind of MIDI. I think it's only an audio editor as far as I know. Sony Acid, I hear this talked about all the time. I've never really used I used Acid, actually. It wasn't from Sony at the time. I'm not talking about Acid. I'm talking about the program Acid. I used it when it was first made. I can't remember who made it at the very beginning. It wasn't by Sony. It was by somebody else. But it was more of a sampling deal. It was more, yeah, I remember it back in the 90s, the version of Acid that I used. But I haven't seen it yet. I've heard people talking about it, though. Have you heard about anything about either of those two?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, actually, I mean, not Sony Acid, but Audacity. I never used it myself, but as you know, I produce podcasts as well, and I know many people who record in Audacity, especially if they're like beginners in podcasts and they just need a easy interface and a simple program to download and start recording, and maybe just do some basic editing. That's quite popular for them.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free and it works well, I think. I don't know about media editing though.
And I believe who makes Audacity? It's tied in now with which of the companies? Audacity is now tied in. I can't remember who they're tied in with now, but they're tied in with another company that makes a lot of different stuff. Hey, Mr. Dave Kropf is in the house. Says his first DAW was Acid Pro. Well, I figured you did Acid at some point, Dave. I don't know. For some reason, it just makes sense knowing you. And then Fruity Loops. Ooh, look at you, Mr. Fruity Loops guy. Dave from 52Qs. If you don't know about 52Qs, y'all should go over and check out 52Qs. Great community. Hey, Dave, if you're going to switch from Logic now, though, what would you switch to? That's the big question of today's thing. Let me know what you would switch to if you had to leave Logic and you went to another DAW. What would that DAW be? That'd be my question for you. Tony Thomas says Acid was for audio loop. Right. I knew it was for like one specific thing back in the 90s. That's when I used it because we could do loops. Yeah, Dave says he used Fruity Loops before it got all high and mighty and became FL Studio. It'll probably be FL Studio Pro before too long. And then they'll start to add a lot of AI to it. They probably have already added AI to it. So yeah, Dave, let us know what, if you had to leave Logic, and I know you use Logic, would you go to Cubase? Where would you go? That is really the goal, the question here of the day. All right, well, I want to get back to my script here. I want to say Cubase, but it's kind of ugly. I know, but Dave, look how cool this looks. I mean, wait a minute. Did I do it? Yeah. Look how cool it looks. I mean, I got to switch. How do I switch? Oh, yeah. Did I mute myself? Test one. Am I still on, Marco? I think I hit mute.
Yes.
Okay, good. Dave says, if I'm going to stare at a DAW for hours and hours, I have to enjoy working on it. Yeah. I felt the same way. And so Dave's vote, by the way, is Ableton, probably, is what he would go to if he wasn't in Logic. We're kind of making a big list of trying to come up with a winner today of who's going to do that. So thanks, Dave, for telling me this. Yeah, I agree. When I went over the past week, I've been kind of doing some research on this, and I've been trying to decide, is Cubase where I want to go? But every time I looked at it, I would watch people working on it on videos, and I'd like, it's just so ugly. I mean, I'm mad because Logic Pro now, every MIDI track, the little thing over on the right, on the left of what instrument you're using is St. Patty's Day green for some reason, and so are all the green icons for all the. Now they're using no more cool instrument things. They're using these stock little green signs or something for everything, and so I'm not too crazy about what Logic is doing to their DAW right now, to be honest with you. I don't know how you feel about that, Dave, but Dave says, I also have a soft spot for Reason. Yeah, and I hear a lot of people talking about using Reason now as a DAW, which I always thought of Reason as a synthesizer or as a, a sound source to use, and now people are talking about using it as a DAW. Marco says, Cubase, it can look even cooler. It's very easy to modify the GUI. Well, like I said, I'm probably going to download it and just mess with it. And Dave says, meh, get off my yard. I don't want to have to mod the UI just so I can enjoy looking at it. And it's not just the colors. All right, well, it's getting testy in here about Cubase. Tony Thomas says, combines the best of Ableton, Cubase, and other DAWs. He's talking about Bitwig. Yeah, this is another one that I'm not going to bring up a screen on this. I did do some research on Bitwig. I watched Venus Theory talk about Bitwig, and I did not think that looked like something I wanted to go to if I switched from Logic. But let's see. We'll talk about that. Thanks for the conversation, everybody. I'm really happy that we are talking about all this stuff. So just to finish this up, Tony says that he feels like Bitwig combines the best of Ableton, Cubase, and other DAWs. Cubase is great. It's not the fastest, but it is super stable and robust. Yeah, and I do see a lot of orchestral people using it for sure. So, all right, let's see. Where does that put us on the list here? So I think it's time to talk about what I would choose if I was going to get a new DAW. I think that I made the decision this week pretty much. I mean, again, I haven't really researched Cubase enough to know if I can change it to make it something, but I just feel like it's going to be a big learning curve with Cubase. And again, I am not necessarily switching from Logic Pro just yet. One thing I was able to do this week is, for the most part, make my Logic Pro template stay looking the same that it's always looked. And if it does, and I don't have to pay any attention to the AI nonsense, I don't like that they're forcing a mastering plugin on my mastering chain. They put it on the mastering chain now. So it's just there. And I've messed with it a few times. It's a little ozone-y in its use, except it's like super limited ozone. If you wanted ozone that almost had no controls, that's what the Logic AI mastering feels like to me, and it's there. But and so I, just so you know, I'm doing this more just to find out what you guys would think, and more than what I'm going to do. I'm not necessarily going to be switching from Logic. But I am definitely needing a backup. But what I realized is that I already had one. And I've been using it for years. And I've been talking about it a little bit. And the actual winner of that's what's going to be my backup DAW, and including for MIDI. You're going to find this somewhat shocking. Can anybody guess? Tony Thomas, I've used a bunch of DAWs, Bitwig, Ableton, Fruity Loops, Studio One, Reason, Renoise. But no, drum roll, please. We need a drum roll. Where's our drum roll? Here we go. For me, the DAW is going to be Pro Tools. It's going to be my backup DAW. I mean, this is a software. No one probably expected that, but I've been teaching music.
Dave did.
Did Dave?
Dave, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have been. He's going to say Pro Tools. Good job, Dave. Well, Dave knows that I also teach Pro Tools over at a local school, just like he does. And it is what it is. But somebody said Sibelius. I almost. You called it? You did? Yeah. Tony Thomas said Pro Tools as well. Yeah. So yeah, this is gonna be the DAW mainly for me because I I know it already. I teach it. I know it. And here's the biggest reason. I had to teach online a class this past month or two. And, oh, that's right. And I was actually, you want a challenge. Try teaching 25 online students music theory, and the only software they have is Pro Tools. If you want a challenge to have them do MIDI and learn Pro Tools, they've just already learned Pro Tools, but they're learning music theory and MIDI at the same time. Until now, I've always taught it in Logic because Logic is such a nice score editor and it's easy to do some things. And now with the new chords thing that Logic has, that's going to be super helpful for teaching song structure. And they won't even need to be able to be players. And so I'm excited about that. If I can use that, I have to go back to teaching online. But, I think... but I'm surprised, Dave. I have to tell you how easy or how much I've gotten into using, believe it or not, and I'm not talking about this new Ableton-y thing that they've introduced, this sketch thing. I'm talking about using actual MIDI on Pro Tools. And I'm not talking about their virtual instruments, which are very average at best, but I'm talking about actually using the MIDI editor and using it. Once you start using it, like anything, once you start using it a lot and you get used to it because you have to, because you're teaching students how to do things and you're in it and you're making beats and you're just doing it, it becomes quite second nature. And since I have to keep Pro Tools around for Nashville because I'm going to get Nashville sessions all the time, I don't really have a choice. I have to keep Pro Tools around. And so for me, the easiest answer to this whole thing is Pro Tools. I'm not switching away from Logic. Logic is second nature to me. Logic, and that's what Dave says here. I can't find fault in that Logic, but and it's a great mixing program, of course. It certainly is compatible with Nashville, so I can send sessions back and forth anytime I want. I know a lot of people up there who program their MIDI in Logic in Pro Tools. I've always thought they were idiots, and I know that John Meyer, he also programs his. He does everything in Pro Tools, and it's so easy to commit the tracks. You could just hit commit, and they're audio tracks, just like that. And so if you want to make all your MIDI into audio, you can do that very quickly. And so, yeah, Dave says, that's right. There's no best DAW, and it's all what you know. Yeah, it's all what you prefer. Tony prefers Reaper and Cubase Nuendo to Pro Tools. There you go. I have heard a lot about Luna, Tony. Everybody's been talking about Luna lately, and I don't have any UA gear. I don't plan on having any UA gear, but I think if you have it, I do have PreSonus gear, which that would lead me to maybe possibly look more at Studio One, which takes advantage of some of the stuff that this PreSonus interface does. So if you are doing any kind of hardware stuff like that, but anyway. But thanks, everybody, for all your thoughts here. Let me come back to this full screen here. So that's my backup DAW. If anybody else wants to add in their backup DAW, we're going to get ready to total the numbers. How are we doing there, producer? Are we getting a good total? Do we have a runaway?
Yes. Well, I'm missing the poll you did on the YouTube channel. I don't have the precise numbers on
here. I'll show it to you. I'll find it. You say it's only a percentage on Pro Tools. Is that what you're saying? I mean, on.
Yeah, exactly. I only see the percentage. I don't see the single numbers.
Okay.
But in the chat we have it's like one for each DAW for many DAWs, except one DAW in particular which got 2 votes actually. That is Logic.
Okay. All right. And
so
on
Logic is the winner in the chat.
In the chat, Logic's the winner. Okay.
Right.
In the poll on YouTube, it's absolutely Cubase, and then Logic is in second place, and Pro Tools is a far third. I think, what was the other one in there? It was Logic and Pro Tools on LinkedIn, but that wasn't a very extensive or long poll and it's 34% is the highest. And Logic is the second highest, and Studio One is the third highest on my poll on YouTube. So that gives you an idea of what people are thinking. Logic Pro is still something people are think of switching to, and it's got a lot of press lately, so it's probably pretty popular. Yeah, Tony, I didn't think that you had to have UA gear, but I just thought that it took advantage of it. Just like Pro Tools. You used to have Pro Tools gear to run Pro Tools. Well, if you have any other comments about DAWs, we're just about to run down to the finish line here. I just thought this was a fun conversation to have, and I want to see what other people think. I think everybody loves to talk about DAWs and what their favorite DAWs are. If you have any last comments you want to throw in, and Tony is not an Apple guy, always a PC guy. Okay, well, that's your problem. That sounds like a personal problem, Tony. If you have a last thought here on a DAW you might switch to, or a DAW we haven't talked about, or a DAW you want to do. But Marco says, Dave, are you the mix down channel guy? I have no idea what that means. Dave is the 52 Qs guy, but I don't know what the mix down channel guy is. If you got any more questions, let's see. Yeah, that's what I said. He's the 52 Qs guy. You need to go to 52qs.com or go to 52 Qs on YouTube, and you'll see his weekly things. I was listening to you yesterday, Dave, and your interview. Tony Thomas said, use the DAWs that make you happy and productive. I use 6 of them. Well, I use one of them to make music, and I use another one because I have to, and that's Pro Tools. I have to. So, I have a love-hate relationship with it. Sometimes I feel like I can use Pro Tools, and it feels good. And then sometimes, and I go back to Logic, I'm like, this is so much easier. But I'm interested in looking at other software. It's Cubase Power User, the best one in Canada. Okay. Well, everybody, that's a good channel, though, Dave says. Everybody, thanks for joining and being part of today's thing. I need to go teach a class now on that I've been running about sync. And by the way, if you are interested in being in that, make sure you go check out makemusicincome.com/learn. That is where that is going on. You can just go there and get the course. And unfortunately, you have to buy the course, which is super cheap. It's so cheap, it's embarrassing. Dave is probably mad at how little I charge for these courses, but I'm just still building it, and so I'm keeping it super low price. And by the way, I think sync and any kind of licensing stuff, I like to keep the prices as low as possible, because you've got these goofballs selling courses for $2,000 and $5,000, and it's just ridiculous. And sync alone is going to be something that's going to take you years to make anything in, and for the most part, most likely. And so, that's what we're talking about. Hey, Dave, thanks for joining us. Have a great long weekend, my friend. You deserve it. And I'm glad you saw it on LinkedIn. I'm glad you're here. Love you, man. Thank you so much. We had Indian food a few weeks back. We'll get another lunch here sometime soon. You do you, baby. We'll see you, man. All right, everybody. And Marco says, I wish the best for Bitwig. It's super cool, but still on diapers. Yeah, I felt the same way. Yeah, I used Logic when it was called Logic, and it was on PC. And there were different versions like Logic Fun and Logic, different things that eMagic was creating back in the day. So, all right, everybody, go to makemusic.com/learn, get you some free stuff, get the new course on sync if you're interested, and we will see you guys, as Dave Cross says, peace out, everybody. we're going to call it. Marco, thank you so much for joining me and helping me today. Great to see you, my friend. And
great to be back. Thank you, everyone.
You
and
stay
have
online.
A great weekend.
Stay online here. We'll talk after we're done. Everyone else, thanks so much. We're going to call it for today. Hope you had fun, and really appreciate you being here. And we will talk to you guys next week. Have a great day, and I hope you make the music that you love and make music income. And have a great long weekend. I know I will. So, yeah, would love to have you come. Marco, just go to this link and you can look into it. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Thanks to Marco. Thanks to Dave Kropf for being here. And thanks for all our guests on our comments. Thanks for all your comments. It's a lot of fun. And we will talk to you all soon. Have a great weekend. And thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.